We're living in a time where everything is political. Literally everything. The air we breathe, political. The bread we eat, political. Oh, and your music? I don't think I have to tell you this, but that's political too. And for some reason, all these political statements seem to converge into a similar message like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, isn't a threat. Really? Because when I think safety, the last thing I want is a female pilot who got her job through affirmative action instead of someone who earned it through merit. But hey, what do I know? Let's just keep playing musical chairs with competence while the left pats itself on the back for virtue signaling. And what's with Democrats professing love for trans people? What's the obsession with letting children undergo irreversible surgeries? Or how about Chuck Schumer desperately holding a can of Corona while whining about Trump's tariffs, possibly raising the price of beer? If all of that doesn't scream out of touch, I don't know what does. Meanwhile, across the globe, our government is throwing away taxpayer money funding DEI musicals in Ireland and transgender comic books in Peru. But sure, let's talk about the evil right wing, while the left does everything to help itself to your wallet. Stick around for this wild ride, which we're kicking off at the Grammys, where Alicia Keys had this to say in her victory speech.
This is not the time to shut down the diversity of voices. We've seen on this stage talented, hardworking people from different backgrounds with different points of view, and it changes the game. DEI is not a threat, it's a gift. And the more voices, the more powerful the sound. When destructive forces try to burn us down, we rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
We're going to need a big bucket of cold water for this one because the reality is about to hit hard. Alicia said, DEI is not a threat, it's a gift. Well, here's the thing. If DEI is a gift, I think I'd prefer a gift card at this point. At least that way, I can pick what I need. But when it comes to pilots, firefighters, and police officers, a gift isn't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who know how to land a plane, put out a fire, and save lives, not people who can check a box on a diversity form. According to a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research, diversity quotas in high-stakes jobs are about as helpful as handing your pilot a manual on how to fly 101. But make sure it's the one with no real training. When police officers focus more on diversity than on qualifications, they end up with a team that's great at checking boxes, but not so great at checking the pulse of the guy they're supposed to save. The reality is these diversity-driven hiring practices don't make us safer. They make us less prepared for the situations that really matter. So maybe we don't need a gift here, Alicia. Maybe we just need people who can actually do their jobs. Then there's the whole more voices, more powerful sound line. Sure, more voices make a better choir, great for musical. But if I'm in a burning building, I don't want a diverse group of firefighters running around trying to sing Kumbaya. I want someone who knows what the hell they're doing. The Heritage Foundation points out that when police departments focus more on diversity quotas and actual experience, you're not just getting diversity, you're getting a group that's likely going to have a harder time handling a crisis because they weren't hired for their ability to get the job done, but for their ability to, you guessed it, check a box on a form. So yeah, more voices might be powerful, but that doesn't mean they'll put out the fire when it's literally burning down the house. Now, Alicia wraps it all up with some fiery rhetoric about rising from the ashes like a phoenix. That sounds great, but let's be real. If your house is burning down, you don't need a phoenix. You need a fire extinguisher. If the safety of your job is based on diversity and not skill, that phoenix is going to be the one setting everything on fire in the first place. The Center for Public Integrity has already shown that when departments prioritize diversity over competence, response times slow down and emergency services become, well, less emergency and more just in time for the after party. In conclusion, DEI policies are great in creative fields where nobody's life is on the line. But when it comes to life or death situations, let's focus less on being inclusive and more on being competent. Because if you're flying my plane, saving my life, or putting out a fire on my home, the only box I want you to check is the I'm qualified to do this as quickly and safely as possible box. And the rest of it, well, that can go into the nice to have pile right next to the politically correct award speech. And speaking of that, we got more virtue signaling at the Grammys, courtesy of Lady Gaga.
Trans people are not invisible. Trans people deserve love. The queer community deserves to be lifted up. Music is love. Thank you.
It's over. This is not going to work anymore. Lady Gaga stands at the Grammys and says, trans people are not visible and the queer community deserves to be lifted up. Oh, how brave, how bold. Someone get her a medal. But let's be real here. This tired, overplayed rhetoric isn't going to fly anymore. First, let's talk numbers. Trans people make up less than 1% of the population in the United States. Not 1%, but fractionally less. We're talking about a sliver, a tiny little fraction of the population. According to a 2021 Gallup poll, only 0.6% of Americans identify as transgender. So why is the entire media machine being held hostage by this minuscule percentage of people? Meanwhile, regular Americans are dealing with real problems like inflation, a collapsing economy, and crime rates that are so high, they might as well start charging admission. But sure, let's make sure we're prioritizing this. Movement so small, it's like giving a megaphone to the one guy in the back of the room trying to sell authentic snake oil. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying trans people don't deserve basic human rights, but can we please stop pretending that this is the only issue America should be obsessed with? When the entire national discourse is hijacked by this fringe group, the rest of us are left wondering why no one is talking about the skyrocketing crime rates or the fact that kids are being taught that they can be whatever gender they feel like today while learning nothing about basic math. You know, the things that will help them build a career, start a family, advance their society. People are realistically more concerned with securing their homes, not securing some stranger's right to demand that gender should be whatever they feel like in the moment. And don't even get me started on the economy. It's like we're all just sticking here waiting for inflation to make our paychecks completely useless, while Lady Gaga gets up on stage to lecture us about the importance of gender fluidity. Meanwhile, your gas tank is empty, but hey, at least the queer community is lifted up. Right? And let's talk about the real fun part. How about the push to transition kids? Yeah, that's right. The whole let's get children on hormone blockers nonsense. If you think that doesn't cross the line, I don't know what to tell you. That's not progressive. It's child abuse. We're out here pushing kids who can't even spell gender dysphoria into making life-altering decisions that they'll probably regret when they're old enough to have an actual thought. And Lady Gaga wants us to celebrate it like it's some kind of breakthrough in human progress. No, it's a disaster in the making, but hey, why not? Let's pump up some preteens with hormones and send them to a life of mental health struggles and confusion. After all, their futures are definitely more important than making sure the streets aren't filled with criminals and the economy isn't tanking, right? So let's stop pretending this is a battle we all need to fight. It's not a universal struggle. Pushing this agenda is just a smokescreen to distract us from everything else that's going to hell in a handbasket. Most people are fed up. And they're starting to see through this performative nonsense. Americans don't care if you're trans or queer or whatever else you want to label yourself as. They care about not getting shot in the street, being able to afford groceries, and making sure their kids aren't being brainwashed into thinking their biology is optional. According to a 2022 Rasmussen poll, 56% of Americans think this whole transgender movement is being pushed too aggressively, and 40% are seriously concerned about the impact it's having on children. Perhaps we should have prioritized those kids learning how to read before we started giving them hormone treatments. At the end of the day, this conversation has had its moment. It's over, and thank God for that. However, some are still holding out, like these folks out at NYU Hospital protesting Trump's ban on giving children puberty blockers.
Shut this entire city down! Not on our watch. Because what they will try to do, they will try to separate us. They will kick the trans people off the bus. They're kicking the indigenous people off the bus. They're kicking our intersex community off the bus. Our two-sphere plus family, they're kicking them off the bus. They just want a membership LGBT bus. Well, guess what, babe? That LGBT bus, it's not going to have any gas. It won't have any tires. Y'all not going any far. Because we are a community that is made and has been woven with the fire and the spirit of revolution. Revolution! Revolution! So the people that are not here with us, we will take note. It's not that cold.
Pretty sure we just watched Tyler Perry's new movie, Medea Has a Mental Breakdown. How many more of those movies can that man make? Anyway, the speaker starts off with, shut this entire city down and not on our watch. Because, yeah, when you don't get your way, it's time to just hit the emergency shutdown button on an entire city, right? Who cares about I don't know, keeping the lights on or preventing chaos. If a few surgeries for kids get canceled, let's just bring the whole damn city to a screeching halt. That'll fix everything. According to the Manhattan Institute, when you shut down cities over emotional temper tantrums, you end up creating more chaos and alienating people. Wow, they really did a study for that one, huh? But hey, at least you got to scream about your cause, right? Then we get the classic, they will try to separate us line. They will kick the trans people off the bus. They're kicking the indigenous people off the bus. Wait, hold on. What bus are we even talking about? The Victimhood Express? Is this some kind of magical bus where everyone gets a free ride based on how oppressed they feel that day? Because it sure sounds like they're saying if we don't cater to every single one of their whims, the bus is going to break down. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm more worried about the buses that are actually running, like, you know, the ones in cities where crime rates are so high that the police should probably be on the bus just to keep it from being hijacked. And what's with all this talk about kicking people off the bus? This whole conversation is about minors being put on a fast track to life-altering medical treatments. And people are finally asking if that's really the smartest choice for kids who are barely old enough to figure out what kind of cereal they want in the morning. But nope, let's turn it into a melodramatic bus ride. Then comes the real chef's kiss of absurdity. That LGBT bus is not gonna have any gas. It won't have any tires. What is this? Are we talking about a literal bus or just the most convoluted metaphor in history? What's next? Are we going to get a manifesto about buses that run on the revolutionary spirit instead of actual fuel? Maybe we should be more concerned about the buses that actually transport people to real jobs and schools, you know, things that contribute to society, like dealing with inflation and crime, not pretending we're stuck in a broken down bus with no tires and gas. Maybe, just maybe, we should put the same energy into the real issues instead of painting this picture of a symbolic bus that's headed nowhere, very much like everything the left does. And then we get the fire and brimstone talk. We are the community that is made and has been woven with the fire and the spirit of revolution. Okay, so now we're not just advocating for change. We're talking about revolution, a full-blown revolution for a few surgeries being canceled. Is this really the fight of our lives? Or are we just doing a dramatic reenactment of a bad soap opera? I mean, sure, let's throw around words like revolution as if it actually means something other than creating more chaos and confusion. At this point, it's like you're sitting through a really awkward game of Who Wants to Be a Revolutionary, where no one knows the rules and the prizes are just more whining. But the cherry on top is when they say, the people that are in here with us, we will take note. It's not that cold. I can't decide if this is a rallying cry or someone trying to add a random weather update to their speech like, hey, it's not that cold, folks. Let's get ready to storm the castle. What does that even mean? Is this a secret code, or is this just a weak attempt at adding some dramatic flair? Either way, it's about as effective as a motivational speech from your high school guidance counselor. No real direction, just a lot of vague promises. Look, this so-called revolution is nothing but a poorly executed, overly dramatic performance that addresses nothing of substance. Instead of engaging in real discussions about the medical and ethical concerns of transitioning minors, we get a confusing, convoluted, emotional tirade full of nonsensical metaphors and overblown rhetoric. But I guess that's what the left loves, huh? Lack of logic, just full emotional appeal. Revolution over canceled surgeries? Because that's really what they're advocating for. A revolution over canceled surgeries. Over preventing a lifetime of trauma for children. Really? That's where we're at now? At the end of the day, this whole thing just feels like someone trying to make a scene rather than actually solve any real problems. And speaking of causing a scene, let's talk about the migrant protests in Los Angeles, where protesters have been blocking traffic and taunting Angelenos with foreign flags, all while begging to stay in America for literally 3 days straight. Yes, folks. Waving flags from other countries while demanding to stay in ours. Because nothing says, I love your country, like waving a flag from somewhere else that you had to flee in order to come to this country and then blocking the road of the people who live in this country who are just trying to get to work or just, go about their lives. Now, let's make one thing clear. These protesters aren't trying to make a point. They're just creating chaos and making sure we all pick sides. If their goal is to show how much illegal immigrants contribute to society, they're doing the exact opposite. I mean, who has time to block traffic on a weekday instead of working? Clearly, if the media is correct, thousands of people have found some free time between collecting handouts. The best part? The LAPD is releasing these folks who are breaking the law. No charges, just a nice little Go ahead, buddy, make more of a mess tomorrow. So they're blocking traffic, waving foreign flags, and getting a free pass. It's like break the law, get a free vacation deal, and the rest of us are stuck in traffic, wondering why we pay taxes. And the longer this goes on, it's more evident that this isn't about politics. It's about resentment, particularly towards white people, and it's getting old. These protesters are playing a dangerous game, and the longer it goes on, the more it feels like a bad reality show where no one wins, and the only thing getting really disrupted is everyone's patience. If these folks want to make a compelling case for staying in America, they might want to stop acting like a bunch of rebellious teenagers who skipped school to protest and start showing how they're part of the solution, not part of the problem. But they're not alone in being part of the problem. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, who's a Democrat, surprise, surprise, is also contributing in ways that you can't even imagine.
I don't want to get into too much detail, but there's someone in our broader universe whose immigration status is not yet at the point that they are trying to get it to. And we said, you know what, let's have her live at our house above our garage. And good luck to the feds coming in to try to get her.
Ah, yes, the white liberal always anointing himself with the mantle of the self-appointed hero. In case you missed that, folks, that's New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy essentially admitting he's running a bed and breakfast for migrants now. He's got a guest living above his garage, and apparently he's throwing a good luck to the feds trying to do their job. Talk about an I'm above the law moment. If this isn't peak liberal hypocrisy, I don't know what is. You've got a governor flaunting the rules like it's a game, all while acting like he's some sort of immigration savior. And let's not forget the real implications of what Murphy's admitting to here. By sheltering someone who's in the country illegally, he's openly violating federal immigration laws, specifically the Immigration and Nationality Act, which prohibits harboring individuals who are unlawfully present in the United States. This is no small matter. It's one thing to grandstand about sanctuary policies, but openly admitting to breaking the law while in office, that's not only tone deaf, it's downright irresponsible. He's essentially daring the federal government to come after him, all while sidestepping the very rules that are supposed to keep the system in check. This isn't a good deed. It's a blatant disregard for the law, and it sets a dangerous precedent for those in positions of power. But seriously, folks, how much longer are we going to pretend that encouraging illegal immigration by providing sanctuary in your own home is a solution? It's not brave, it's reckless. What happens when every governor starts pulling stunts like this, turning their homes into safe houses for people who should be going through the legal process? This isn't a feel-good story. It's just a political move wrapped in misplaced righteousness. Maybe instead of making his home a sanctuary for people who are breaking the law, he should be focusing on fixing the system so that people don't feel they need to hide in the first place. But then again, that would require actual work and not just some performative virtue signaling. And speaking of lame attempts at virtue signaling, in enter Chuck Schumer.
Let's just take Super Bowl Sunday, okay? It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac. Because what is guacamole made of? Avocados, both from Mexico.
Oh, Chuck, always bringing the class to the table. Here we are, folks, witnessing a U.S. senator claim that Trump's tariffs are going to raise the price of beer because most of it comes from Mexico, all while holding up a can of Corona. You really can't make this up. If you wanted a perfect example of a politician who's totally out of touch with reality, this is it. Schumer's out here telling Americans they're going to be paying more for their Super Bowl beer and guacamole, as if that's the real crisis facing America. Meanwhile, the actual impact of tariffs on industries, jobs, and the economy is just a footnote in his mind. But here's a real kicker. Mere hours after Chuck pulled this stunt, both Mexico and Canada folded to Trump's demands and agreed to strengthen their borders in order to postpone those very tariffs. I mean, can you imagine? While Schumer's out here crying over beer prices, the very countries he's worried about just caved and agreed to a deal that completely undermines his entire argument. It's the irony of the year. Schumer's public meltdown about beer and guacamole was literally rendered irrelevant by a simple diplomatic win from Trump. You can't make this stuff up. Chuck grandstands while the real action is happening right under his nose. It's almost like he was the last one to realize game was over. And speaking of game over, DOGE and Trump are just slashing so much of the government. USAID has been the focus as of the last couple of days. And oh wow, we just got information on the kinds of programs that we're funding. We couldn't have gone fast enough.
And here's the reason why Elon Musk and others have been taking a look. Because if you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government. Thank you, guys.
Oh, wow. Where do we even begin? Carolyn Levitt just nailed it, calling out the absolute absurdity of USAID's priorities. And trust me, it's hard to top this list of insane spending. Let's break it down, because if this isn't the definition of waste, fraud, and abuse, I don't know what is. We've got $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces. DEI, folks, in Serbia, because that's where American taxpayers should be focusing their energy, right? Maybe we can toss in some diversity workshops while we're at it to make sure the Balkans are fully woke. And it gets even better, because how about the $70,000 for a DEI musical in Ireland? You can't make this up. Someone decided that what the world really needs right now is a musical that teaches the wonders of DEI to the Irish, who, as we all know, are as diverse as blades of grass. Now, forget about healthcare, education, or, I don't know, actual infrastructure. Nope, we're funding a musical. But hey, why stop there? Let's throw in $47,000 at the transgender opera in Colombia, because the world was clearly dying for that, right? Actually, pretty sure the president of Colombia was dying for that one, now that we think about it. But wait, there's more. How about $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru? What does that even mean? What's next? Transgender Spider-Man speaking Spanish? USAID funding a Broadway show about the political journey of avocado toast in California? Levitt is right to be furious. And honestly, as an American taxpayer, I'm absolutely with her. Who the hell thought any of this was a good idea? It's one thing for private individuals or groups to fund this kind of nonsense, but our federal government is just throwing away money like it's monopoly cash. And here's where Elon Musk comes in, because apparently he's been tasked with cleaning up this mess. We've heard DOGE, right? They've been doing a great job. All in all, the fact that this is where our tax dollars are going instead of solving actual urgent problems is nothing short of infuriating. All that being said, Trump really drove the point home of what USAID ended up turning out to be.
The first term, though, USAID was something that you liked in some respects.
I love the concept of it.
Had some programs.
Sure, I love the concept, but they turned out to be radical left lunatics. And the concept of it is good, but it's all about the people.
He's not wrong about the concept of USAID, helping people, providing aid, promoting democracy, all that warm and fuzzy stuff that we love to talk about. But as he points out, it's the people running the show that have turned it into a total clown show. Radical left lunatics. Honestly, that actually sounds like it's putting it nicely. It's almost like someone took a good idea and stuffed it with all this woke nonsense, administrative blow, and projects nobody really asked for. Instead of focusing on real issues, they've been funding transgender comic books in Peru and DEI musicals in Ireland. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that makes you wonder if USAID is more about pushing an agenda than actually helping people. But not everybody's happy. Somebody's got a grievance, and that somebody is, well, I think you know exactly who that is. Ilhan Omar.
It is really, really a sad day in America. We are witnessing a constitutional crisis. We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like. When you gut the Constitution and you install yourself as the sole power, that is how dictators are made. What Trump and Elon and all of their cronies are trying to do is take away the constitutional power of Congress. We get to decide. We have the power of the purse. We get to decide where money is allocated, and it's the executive's power to make sure that that money gets to where it needs to get. When we talk about civil servants being let go, what we are talking about is not saving money. It's essentially saying they can get paid while they're home
and their work doesn't get done on behalf of the American people. It is us, taxpayers, who are being ripped off. It is us, taxpayers, who are not getting the resources that we paid into.
Ilhan Omar's rant about pausing USAID spending being the beginning of a dictatorship is like watching a toddler throw a tantrum because someone took their candy. It's one of those moments where you think, did she seriously just say that out loud? Pausing some overseas spending isn't the start of a dictatorship. It's the start of people realizing they're getting fleeced by their government. Omar's hysteria is the political equivalent of someone holding a do not disturb sign on their office door while they're busy squandering taxpayer money. Now let's start with her biggest claim, that pausing USAID spending is a constitutional crisis. Really? This is what you're calling a crisis? The Constitution does give Congress the power of the purse to decide how taxpayer money gets spent, but it's not as clear-cut as she'd like it to sound. While Congress does have the authority to approve foreign aid, the executive branch can also manage or redirect funds once they're allocated. This is what happened when Trump signed an executive order to pause certain USAID spending. He was using his executive authority to temporarily halt funds, a power that past presidents have exercised with foreign aid. So it's not a dictatorship, it's a routine exercise of executive power. But sure, let's panic about the end of democracy because we can't fund a transgender opera in Colombia. Then we have Omar accusing Trump and Elon of trying to strip Congress's power. I'll let that sink in for a second. A sitting congresswoman accusing two individuals, one of them the head of the executive branch, of taking away Congress's power while she's in Congress, where the power already resides. Congress already has the power, but I guess it's easier for Omar to paint a picture of a looming dictatorship than to face the fact that she is part of the system that's letting this waste happen. The real power grab here is the unchecked spending on projects like DEI musicals in Ireland, because that's where American taxpayer money should go, apparently. Now let's talk about Omar's stance on civil servants. She claims halting wasteful spending means we're paying people to stay home while their work doesn't get done. Well, Representative Omar, it's not about paying people to stay home. It's about questioning if those people should be paid in the first place. When USAID is funding $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia or $1.5 million to promote DEI in Serbia, I think it's pretty fair to ask, what exactly are we paying for? The Cato Institute has been pretty clear about how the government wastes billions on inefficient programs. And you know what? I'd rather not have my taxes go towards some avant-garde opera about gender identity. Thanks. But sure, let's keep up the charade that we're just saving money by letting bureaucrats sit at home and do nothing while we fund projects like these. And let's not forget Omar's taxpayer angle. She's over here acting like she's the voice of the common man. But here's the reality. Most Americans are looking at these foreign aid programs and going, wait a minute, you're sending our money to fund DEI in Ireland, where the most diverse person is a guy named Conor McGregor? Meanwhile, we can't even fix the healthcare system at home? According to a 2020 National Taxpayer Union study, foreign aid programs like these are regularly criticized for wasting taxpayer money on irrelevant or unproductive projects. So when Omar says it's us taxpayers who are getting ripped off, she's right, but not the way she thinks. We're getting ripped off when USAID spends millions on politically charged feel-good programs that don't actually help the American people or the people they claim to help abroad. Now, since we're on the topic of slashing government waste, you can't have that conversation without mentioning Elon Musk and DOGE. This guy's out here doing the hard work of exposing government bloat and actually getting stuff done. But of course, that means he's going to get the attention of people who can't handle the truth. So what happens? They doxed DOGE. Yeah, you heard that right. Some genius thought it would be a good idea to leak the names of 6 young engineers working for Musk, all because they're helping trim the fat off the bloated federal government. These engineers, in their teens and early 20s, are minding their own business, doing their hard work to cut out the waste, and some keyboard warriors decided to drag them into the public eye. Real classy, right? And how does Musk react? Oh, he dropped the hammer. He said, "You've committed a crime." Not exactly subtle, but who needs subtlety when you've got a mafia-level response that actually makes sense? The best part is watching the people who did the doxing now act all shocked and defensive. Like they didn't just put a target on some young, hardworking engineer because they dared to do their job and cut down wasteful programs. Musk's followers immediately rushed to his defense because who wants to stand behind the guy who's actually trying to fix a broken system? Meanwhile, liberals on Reddit started posting threats aimed at DOGE employees, and the U.S. Attorney's Office responded by saying they would be investigating the matter. But the biggest brain-dead response came from none other than Reid, because what would Joy bring if anything but? the Joy.
And I want to go into this because Wired has done actually a lot of really good reporting, and they actually named 6 people, one of whom I think is still in college, and these are people who don't work for the federal government. It's hard to believe they have security clearances of any kind. Elon Musk has essentially banned people from Twitter, literally blocked their accounts and deleted their accounts for renaming those people, right? For naming those, identifying those people. This was journalism that happened that apparently they're not allowed to do that, right? And those people work for him. It's not a crime to do journalism and name those people if those people are gaining access to USAID and other places. Can you talk about what else is in that Wired story? And I don't know if you have this reporting as well, but that Elon Musk is making decisions about what he wants to get rid of based on not research, but maybe what he's actually getting on Twitter, like content that he's getting?
Joy Reid really outdid herself here, trying to downplay the very real dangers faced by Elon Musk's DOGE staff after they were doxxed. Let's just say Reid must have missed the memo that posting someone's private information online isn't exactly a normal day in journalism. But hey, what's a little death threats and stalkers when you're just doing some hard-hitting reporting, right? It's almost like she thinks these engineers just signed up for a reality TV show called Your Life is Now a Target for Online Psychos. I guess the new standard for journalism is releasing people's personal details and hoping they don't end up on some extremist hit list. Nice job, Joy. Now let's talk about her delusional take on naming these people. Reid claims it's not a crime to name employees working for Musk, but what she conveniently ignores is that these young engineers weren't just getting their names out there. They were getting threatened, stalked, and harassed. Nice spin, Joy. Just call it journalism when you're endangering people's lives for the sake of a story. Then she tries to turn this into some bizarre story about Musk basing decisions on Twitter reactions, as though that's the real issue here. Newsflash, the issue isn't Musk's social media habits. It's that people are using social media as a weapon to intimidate professionals who are simply doing their jobs to the benefit of the American people. But sure, let's make the guy trying to fix the system the villain. That'll work great. Classic deflection. And let's get to brass tacks with doxing for a second. Doxing isn't just naming someone. It's ruining their life by exposing their personal information with the intent to harm. It's like saying, here's their address, here's their phone number, and hey, while you're at it, let's make sure they never feel safe again. But apparently in Joy Reid's world, it's just journalism when someone gets their personal information plastered on message boards and it ends up in a literal danger zone. The thing is, in most places, doxing is considered a crime, especially when it's done with the intent to intimidate or cause harm. Maybe Reid missed that part of the lesson, but this is a violation of privacy, not some noble act of exposing corruption. So yeah, let's stop pretending that throwing young engineers under the bus while they're literally trying to make the system better is some kind of righteous journalism. It's reckless, it's dangerous, and it's frankly sickening. But sure, keep defending it as journalism while you watch it burn. In the end, we have to ask ourselves, why is it so easy for some to twist the truth and shield the powerful while others are left to face the consequences of their actions? Why is accountability only reserved for those trying to expose waste, corruption, and inefficiency rather than the ones profiting from it? As we've seen time and again, those in power don't hesitate to deflect, distract, and manipulate the narrative when their own interests are at stake. So as we reflect on this, consider where you stand. Are we truly okay with allowing those who stand up to the status quo to be demonized and silenced, all while the systems that drain our resources continue unchecked? Or are we ready to challenge the dominant narratives, question the motives behind them, and demand real transparency? The choice, as always, is ours to make, but it's time to start holding the real villains accountable, no matter how many flashy headlines they throw our way. Anyway, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.